Well, I think we're going to kick things off as people continue to enter the waiting room. From the waiting room, I think people can get caught up as we dive in because we have a lot to share today. So I just want to welcome everybody to Care Farming Network's official launch. It is so great to see all of you here, and we appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come and learn more about Care Farming Network and share more about what y'all are up to as well. During this presentation today, we'll be sharing how the Care Farming Network originated. We're going to hear from 4 care farms presenting on their unique and inspiring work. And we're going to round out our time together with a question and answer and open forum. So we have a chance to hear from you as well. Before we dive in though, we did want to note when you joined the meeting, you were muted. There's a lot of people joining us today, so we would appreciate keeping that mute function on. But if you have a question or comment, please do use the chat feature, and you can see here on the screen where that's located if you're not familiar. We're also going to encourage you to leave your chat window open because as we share information, there's going to be a lot of links that are thrown into the chat that you might want to check out during the presentation. And now for some introductions. We would love if you used that chat feature also to introduce yourself, your name, what organization you might be affiliated with, and feel free to drop in your website link too. So I'll start off. My name is Kate Mudge. I'm going to be moderating today's meeting, and I joined CFN as a consultant to help support our work in communications and outreaching to care farms. Woody Woodroof, who you'll be hearing from shortly, is the founder and executive director of Red Wiggler Community Farm, and Care Farming Network is a program of Red Wiggler. Andrea Barnhart is the previous farm manager at Red Wiggler and serves as a project consultant with CFN. Gabrielle is our social media consultant, and Sandy, who's monitoring our chat, is Red Wiggler's project manager, working in development, marketing, and Care Farming Network matters, as well as special events and special projects. So now I'm going to pass it over to Woody Woodroof, the executive director and founder of Red Wiggler Community Farm. Hi, Woody.
Next slide. Hi, everyone. I'm Woody. I founded Red Wiggler back in 1996. We are located in Germantown, Maryland, which is about an hour from downtown Washington and also an hour from Baltimore City. We are a certified organic farm, and we have 15 adults with developmental disabilities on our payroll. They get paid minimum wage or a little better, and they're mostly part-time, or some of them are getting close to full-time. There are 7 full-time employees at Red Wiggler. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and our budget size is about $800,000 annually. And next slide. Red Wiggler's mission is to be a sustainable care farm where people with and without developmental disabilities come together to work, learn, and grow healthy food. Growers, the 15 growers I mentioned earlier, they all work together in teams with volunteers and staff to plant, cultivate, harvest, and distribute we're on about 5 acres of tillable land here at Red Wiggler. We have about 200 volunteers annually working to bring it all together. We yield about $120,000 worth of produce annually. And then something that we're really excited about, all of us are, is that 50% of what we grow and harvest is distributed to our community supported agriculture program. And then the other 50% is distributed to food banks and pantries throughout our county and region. a little bit about why we're here today, or how this came to be, is that sometime around 2000, the year 2000, we were about 5 years in, we started getting calls and emails from people really like you all, who wanted to do something like Red Wiggler in their county and their state, across the country, really. And I'd just like to highlight a farm less ordinary. This picture here on the slide is their ribbon cutting from last season. They contacted us about 7 or 8 years ago, and we started consulting with them. And in many ways, a lot of what a farm less ordinary is doing is a carbon copy, if you will, but based on, you know, their situation in Virginia. So it's not exactly the same, but we mirror each other and collaborate in a lot of ways together today. So Farm Less Ordinary is an example of what we hope to do with the Care Farm Network. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to our former farm manager, who's now really sort of spearheading the Care Farm Network, Andrea Barnhart. There you go, Andrea.
Hi, everyone. It's so great to see everyone's faces. So as Woody said, I coordinate the Care Farming Network. I started working at Red Wiggler in 2009 as a seasonal assistant, and then was the farm manager at Red Wiggler for 7 years. For me, the key piece of what makes Red Wiggler unique is when a grower, someone with a disability, and who has been a paid employee for over 10 years, teaches a neurotypical volunteer out in the fields how to harvest a kohlrabi or a carrot, or how to use a pitchfork or a rake. And this is what inclusion and opportunity really look like. But we also need to recognize that in creating these spaces, farming is hard, and balancing a production farm with a mission is even harder. So we started a network so that we could reach out to our peers for support, sharing both challenges and successes. Next slide. So in 2018, we began outreaching to other local care farms in Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania. And in partnership with Future Harvest CASA, we hosted the first ever Mid-Atlantic Care Farming Summit with over 70 attendees. It was so energizing to be amongst our peers doing similar work, and we got encouraging feedback to continue with a formal network. Next slide. In 2020, we officially established the Care Farming Network to connect and support both established farms and aspiring farmers working with individuals with intellectual or developmental differences. Historically, neurodivergent individuals and individuals with developmental differences have been undervalued and underemployed. Here at Red Wiggler, we've experienced firsthand how transformative care farming is by employing and empowering individuals with developmental differences. By establishing the network and connecting like-minded organizations, we can build the capacity to create more opportunities for farms to provide meaningful work. We can also provide spaces for farmers to learn from each other as we advocate for greater recognition and opportunities for established and beginning care farmers in the United States. Next slide. So what is care farming? Care farming is the therapeutic use of farming practices typically for marginalized or vulnerable groups of people. This is a term widely used in Europe, but not as common here in the United States. As an emerging term in the US, there are many terms that are interchangeable. You might hear nonprofit farming, social care farming, or farming with a social purpose. Care farming exists in various models, such as a 501c3 nonprofit, LLC or for-profit business, or associated with another agency, perhaps a prison, group home agency, or food bank. Care farms serve many different populations: people with mental health needs, people with addictions, formerly incarcerated individuals, veterans, seniors, youth, neurodivergent individuals, and individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities. The Care Farming Network is for all farms that serve these populations and that identify as a care farm. Next, care farming comes in all shapes and sizes. Care farms may be an organization with paid staff of 10 or volunteer staff of 1. They may be a residential life-sharing community or a homestead garden. Care farming includes lots of different types of farming activities, ranging from vegetable production, animal husbandry, animal therapy, flower farms, fruit and orchard production, greenhouse and nursery production, and making value-added products. So as you can tell, there's truly not one size that fits all. Care farms can look very different, but they share the overall purpose of using farming as a therapeutic base for promoting health, wellness, and overall quality of life. So let's talk a little bit about the Care Farming Network. We have 3 main goals for the network. First, to raise awareness so that more people know what care farming is. We are sharing people's stories and creating visuals of what care farming looks like and its benefits. As our network, our intention is to highlight the hundreds of farms currently operating and make care farming a recognized term. The Care Farming Network website includes a link to a video we created this year highlighting a snapshot of what care farming looks like. Please feel free to share this video wildly, as we hope the video is useful in educating folks about the care farming concept. We are also regularly updating our website to include links to helpful resources. And we're working with a researcher who will publish a paper on care farming, so we have shareable data that clearly illustrates the benefits care farming provides. Our second goal is to build community. This year, we have increased our membership from the Mid-Atlantic area to over 100 care farms across the US. Our website has an online directory and map where you can submit your farm and join the network for free. I would encourage you to go ahead, explore our map and directory. See if you can find your farm or organization. It's very interactive. You can zoom in on a state to see your exact location or how many farms there are in your state. Or you can click the filter listings button and search on type of farm or population served. For example, you can see there's currently 21 care farms that provide employment. As you explore the map, please let us know if you want to update your profile, or let us know of farms that are missing from the network. We are still doing our initial outreach, so I'm sure there are more states that have care farms. As we expand, we want to provide opportunities for networking both locally and nationally. We plan on establishing regional chapters, in-person farm tours, hosting virtual member gatherings, and hosting an annual conference. Our third goal is to build capacity, both for established care farms and for aspiring care farmers wanting to start up their own farm. We currently provide consultations, and soon we will begin hosting webinars on various topics. For example, how to fundraise, how to manage volunteers, or how to do program evaluation. We want to provide ways for farms to share their skills and best practices so that we can all learn from one another. By sharing and establishing a toolkit of best practices and resources, our hope is that established care farms can operate more effectively, and aspiring farmers can have an easier time at starting their own care farm up. In the future, we aim to fundraise as a national network to help provide mini grants for care farms. Overall, our vision is to build capacity so that there is a care farm in every county.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Woody. Thank you for sharing what our history and our goals and our aspirations are as a national network. And since connecting and sharing our goals, I'm excited to introduce our first presenter to connect and share their work at Desert Survivors, located in Tucson, Arizona. I am thrilled to present Karen, or introduce Karen Wilson. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you for the introduction. Desert Survivors is a pretty unique place, and it is so exciting to be here and be part of the Care Farms community. We have been around since 1981, and we are a 501c non-profit organization. I have been on board at Desert Survivors almost since we first got started. I actually found Desert Survivors through my son, who is now an adult with autism, but at the time was 3 years old. And he was referred to Desert Survivors for services. And when I came and met the folks there and talked about my background, they pretty well hired me right away. And here I am 37 years later, the executive director of the company. Desert Survivors really got its start, and I think we need to switch slides here. Yeah, Desert Survivors actually got its start back in 1981, as I said. It was an idea of Dr. Joe Patterson, who is a psychologist here in Tucson and was very involved in the deinstitutionalization movement of folks with disabilities. He kind of looked at what we value in our lives on a regular basis. And when you really boil it down to the basics, it's being able to develop relationships, being able to have a job so that you can make money and then go out and spend it. Pretty basic, but that's kind of what we all do. So he actually took 5 individuals out of the institution. They went out into the desert and gathered some seeds and started growing plants. And when they first sold those initial plants, those 5 gentlemen got their very first paychecks, which was pretty awesome. In 1986, through some negotiations with the city of Tucson, we were able to get this 4-acre lot, which is right on the edge of the Santa Cruz River Basin and at the base of A Mountain in Tucson. Our 4 acres we have since developed into this amazing nursery. We had to put in irrigation systems, we had to build a greenhouse, do all of the infrastructure that's needed, and now it's a pretty awesome place. We went from having those 5 gentlemen to employing about 40 individuals with various intellectual and developmental disabilities. Next slide, please. This is what our nursery has, a little bit of a view of it right now. And these are some of the folks that work here at Desert Survivors. We were able to actually get a contract with the state of Arizona through their Division of Developmental Disabilities. And that's how most of these folks first come to us. They're referred to us. We are an employment program. So when we first get a referral, everybody actually comes for a tour and is interviewed, and we make the decision whether or not that person is appropriate for working here. Everybody has to understand that they have to deal with the wonderful weather here in Arizona, which in the summer is pretty darn hot. And as you all know, farming is an outdoor occupation. So it really is an interview process and making sure that everybody really knows what they're getting into. These folks that you see in the slide here are actually doing some up-potting, taking little small seedlings and putting them into larger pots. Pretty awesome place to be. Next slide, please, Kate. This really gives you a great view of what our nursery kind of looks like right now. It was certainly a struggle to begin with when we first opened, trying to figure out what exactly we were going to grow, what plants were going to be popular. But we decided to stick with the mission of being a desert nursery, and we only grow native plants that are found within the region where we are here in Tucson. We're actually the only native plant nursery in the state of Arizona, believe it or not, that just focuses on this particular type of plant. 40 individuals that work here are divided up into small groups so that each person has what we call a mentor. We call our staff mentors because they're not here to give direction and stand back and watch people work. They work alongside our folks, showing them what to do, offering a lending hand when they need it, and just guiding them through the process. So that's why we call them mentors. They're pretty awesome people. We actually have 2 off-site crews as well that do landscaping out in the community and do cleanup in downtown Tucson. So it's a really, really awesome program. Next slide, please, Kate. We have certainly changed over the years from our humble beginnings. It's just amazing to watch all the different things that we've done over the years and to see where we are now. The main thing that we teach here is respect. I think everything comes down to that. We respect every individual for who they are. We respect every individual for where their skills are and where their abilities are. We absolutely do not discriminate against anybody. And we believe that everybody has a purpose, no matter what that might look like. There is nobody out there that can't do something. And we absolutely work hard to find what that is and help each individual to grow and to meet their full potential. We hope to move as many folks on to get jobs out in the community at other nurseries. And we've had some success with that. Whereas other folks have stayed with us and are still with us and will probably be here for the long haul, which is great too. Everybody gets paid minimum wage or above. And, you know, as I said, we have 40 folks and it's a pretty awesome place to be. Next slide, please, Kate. We are so honored to be part of the care farming community. And, you know, I have to say, being a presenter and being part of this today is so awesome, especially for the launch of this wonderful, wonderful program. We're really looking forward to all sharing all information with other folks who are like-minded and really getting to know everybody and share ideas and find out what other people are doing. We're certainly facing a lot of challenges here in Arizona with the way our service system is working right now. And I'm sure other people are having those same challenges, not to mention how we make money. You know, our nursery brings in quite a lot of money every year, and it is able to actually pay the wages of all the folks we hire with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And then the money that we get from the state of Arizona contract pays for all our support staff. So we're doing the best we can, but there's certainly challenges out there, as I'm sure you're all aware. So we really look forward to continuing this partnership with Care Farming Network and helping each other out as we go. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you, Karen. We're going to have 3 more presenters, and please, if you would like to ask any of the presenters questions, feel free to be typing them in the chat, and we'll get to those as soon as we get to the Q&A after all the presenters have had a chance to speak. I'm excited to introduce our next presenters, Jennifer and Max Cohn. They're from Little Otter Flower Farm, which is located in Bedford, Virginia. And welcome to Jennifer and Max.
Hi, my name is Max Kohn, and I started the Little Otter Flower Farm in the spring of 2020, moving from Montclair, New Jersey to Bedford, Virginia to help people with autism. develop job skills, and find employment around a community. Unfortunately, the unemployment rate among people with autism is around 85%. And in this job, we grow flowers, people, and community. Next slide. We offer internships with 1 to 3 people with autism every year in February through November. And we are thankful to have several retired special ed teachers help with social skills and support on the farm. And we use cut flowers, and we make arrangements and bunches to sell at the market, subscriptions, and do-it-yourself weddings and small events. And one of my favorite things to do is random acts of kindness anywhere in Bedford County. And they are an arrangement delivered to a person or organization anywhere in the county. And also we practiced regenerative agriculture this year with cardboard, weed juice, and indigenous microorganisms. And we have a solar greenhouse, seed starting greenhouse, and an acreage of growth so far. And our successes, next slide. We have had many successes to celebrate the Little Otter Flower Farm. First, we are most proud of our people. 2 of our interns got jobs. And I am now responsible for all the finances at the market, called cash and credit cards, and all the recording, bookkeeping, and recording of expenses and observations related to the farm. And I am also responsible for random acts of kindness, emails, and texts. And next year I will be responsible for all the watering, spraying, and fertilizing and driving. And third is we are also proud of our flowers. We grew Lysianthus from seed, and we also had over 25 varieties of flowers starting in 2021. And 4 in 2022, we won 2 awards this year: Agribusiness of the Year by the Bedford Area Chamber of Commerce, and the Bedford Get Together Local Business Community Service Award. My mother, Jennifer Cohn, is up next for the challenges.
Next slide, please. Thanks, Max. So yeah, our biggest challenge, unfortunately, has been dealing with the school system and the social service infrastructure. It's been consistent with our experience up in New Jersey with the schools that instead of fostering a culture of independence and ability, we've been pretty frustrated with the culture of disability and dependence. So moving forward, we are we'll still work with the schools and we'll still work with the system, but we'll only take on interns where we have an independent relationship with another adult who's there for this person. I hesitate to say parent because family structures are complicated, but we need, people need a village to thrive. And so we're going to be a little bit more picky about the interns that we take on. The interns who have been successful have been interns who have come to us from the family as opposed to from the school system or from the social service infrastructure. Our other challenge, I don't know whether you have this slide in there, is deer and fungus. The first 2 years, our suburban turned flower farm dog, who you saw on the prior slide, did a great job chasing away the deer. And this year, as you can see from those very sad eaten sunflowers, not so much. And as Max said, we practice regenerative agriculture. We are not certified organic because of all the paperwork we just don't have time for, but we've actually gone beyond organic to brew our own indigenous microorganisms and use our own fertilizers, going with the strategy of proliferating as much biodiversity as possible. But that takes time. We just finished our second growing season, so we continue to work on the biodiversity on our farm, and fighting fungus is a pretty big challenge. And then our last challenge is just fatigue of being new farmers. We excuse me, we moved from urban northern New Jersey. We don't have a background in farming. We are learning all of this. And so we're pretty darn tired by the end of the season. So we hope to continue to put in place systems and processes so that we could do our work more efficiently and have a little bit of energy left over at the end of the season. Next slide, please. We are really excited to be part of the Care Farming Network. I have a background in business. I spent the past 15 years as a professor of business, developed a business program at Drew University, and prior to that was in business and operations. So I am happy to help folks on that side of it, and I am eager to learn more of the farming part of it from folks who have much more experience in farming, particularly anybody out there who's getting into the regenerative agriculture as we are. So thank you so much for the invitation, and we are thrilled to be part of this network. That's it for us.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Max. You grow some very beautiful flowers.
Thank you.
Yeah. Our next presenter is Heather Tarczan, who is the Executive Director of Urban Autism Solutions, which is located in Chicago, Illinois. Welcome to Heather.
Thank you, Kate. So I am Heather Tarczan. I'm the Executive Director of Urban Autism Solutions. And next slide. Urban Autism Solutions is a 10-year-old nonprofit based here in Chicago. We're dedicated to changing outcomes for young adults with autism. And we do that through an integrated community life that advances social and vocational opportunities. Next slide. Underneath Urban Autism Solutions, we have an umbrella of different programs in addition to 3 of our residential locations. So we offer social programming, which is under our Network 1212 programs. Then we offer our, what I would consider transition programs, which include our West Side Transition Academy, our newest program, which is our Life Lab. And then, of course, what we're here to talk about today, which is our longest running program, our Growing Solutions Farm. Next slide. All of our programs are really designed for transition age students that are 16 to 22 years old that have a diagnosis of autism or a related challenge. We primarily work with these young adults that are from West Side Chicago public high schools. These services are complementary to these schools, and we work with 5 schools right now. We provide a lot of social emotional learning, speech and language communication, occupational therapy, social work, community-based internships. We explore the city via public transportation. The ultimate goal for a lot of our students that we're working with is to try to help place them into competitive employment. It's a goal. It might not be for every student, but wherever we can, we want them to develop those transferable job skills at our Growing Solutions Farm, which also serves as a job site for our City of Chicago One Summer Chicago program. So during the summer, young adults are able to actually get paid for about 6 weeks of employment, part-time employment at our farm, and they're able to list that on their resume. Next slide, please. So as we have heard a lot about in talking about autism and many people, and more than half of those that have autism remain unemployed and unenrolled in higher education more than 2 years after high school. And it's a statistic that we see even more of here on the west side of Chicago. These are some of the most disenfranchised young adults in the city. They face a trifecta really of problems. Not only are they young adults with a disability, but 90 to 95% of these students come from households that are at or below the federal poverty level. They're dealing with a lot of issues relating to homelessness. They're dealing with issues of crime and poverty, and a lot of issues that are bigger than what we could possibly provide. So we try to help connect these individuals, these young adults, to different services that are available to them within the city and the state of Illinois as well. Next slide. For students who are job ready, we work hard to connect them, as we've talked about, to competitive employment. We spend a lot of time educating and trying to identify employers who are willing to hire neurodiverse candidates, excuse me. We do a lot of resume and interview preparation. We talk about, how to present yourself, what clothes to wear. We help them to fill out job applications, and we do provide some on-site support as well if that's needed. We also have an incredible partnership through Lyft, because again, a lot of our young adults do come from communities where there is some of the highest incidences of violence and crime in the city. So a lot of times parents and guardians will not let the students work after hours or nights or weekends. So Lyft has generously worked with us to be able to provide these students with rides to and from work during the first couple months of employment. The student is then working towards PACE ride service, or is able to save their money to use Lyft to go back and forth. Next slide, please. Our Growing Solutions Farm is a nationally recognized program. It's a 1.2 acre produce farm, as we talked about, on the west side of Chicago, located in an area called the Illinois Medical District. And it's really a vocational training site where our students are learning about urban agriculture, but they're also developing those transferable job skills that help them to obtain jobs in competitive employment. Next slide, please. It all started out in 2013 with about 900 square feet and some earth boxes that came from Home Depot. In our early days, we partnered with Easter Seals and our own residents, as well as one of our first high schools on the west side called Al Raby High School. Next slide. And this was our land that we worked with. And we, again, kind of plopped ourselves on about 900 square feet and decided we were going to give it a go. We decided to start with produce, and found that was the best for our students to work with. Berries required a little bit more delicacy, and our kids tended to work with things like tomatoes and cucumbers a little bit more easier. Next slide. By 2017, we really expanded onto that full 1.2 acres. And we brought onto the team a full-time urban farmer. We also, during the course of the program, introduced speech and language therapists to the farm as well, to work with students individually and in groups of 2 or maybe 3 students to further refine some speech and language skills. We slowly started to integrate other disciplines as well, and that included behavior therapists. Next slide, please. Pre-pandemic, our farm kind of morphed again, and we have a small hoop house. We've got a number of different sheds. We have our earth beds. We've got a number of different composting bins. I think we've got about 30 or so of those. We have a small little apple orchard that's about 18 or so trees. We also have a wash pack, which we use for our farm stand as well. There's a sidewalk that separates one end of the farm from the other. And what you can't see from this picture is actually our tented, shaded outdoor classroom. For a lot of our students, they don't get fresh air, they don't get exercise. So this space actually gives them both of those things. What you also can't tell by the picture is that this parcel of land is fully enclosed by a black iron fence. So for people who need to run or need to kind of move about, they're able to very, very safely in this enclosed area. Next slide. Today, Growing Solutions Farm uses the full 1.2 acres. We have that high hoop house, 30 compost bins, and 7,000 square feet of growing space. We have that shaded outdoor classroom I talked about, as well as a permanent farm stand, sheds. We use a shipping container that stores all of our items like shovels and tools and lawnmowers. Everything is very, very intuitive for our students. We use a lot of visual aids. We have everything very, very organized, so it goes into the right spot, and students are able to, again, even with lower literacy levels, they're able to easily identify where something is to go. This fall, we actually work with 4 different high school CPS partners and can accommodate about 25 students per group at the farm. We offer a twice weekly on-site farm stand and have a CSA program during the summer. 20% of our produce is donated during the season, the growing season, not only to our student participants, but it's also donated to local food pantries, giving back to the West Side, where, again, a number of our students join us from. Last year in 2021, we also created our first sensory garden, where we were given some seed money and able to create a small space to welcome our students and our visitors to really kind of touch and feel and taste different plants. And we found that that was something that was very, very well received, and expanded on that a little bit further, which you'll see a picture of. Next slide, please. This kind of shows some more of our growing space. Next slide. It shows the outdoor attended classroom and the farm stand, our educational shed, again, some of the visuals. Next slide, please. You can see some of our pickup with our CSA program, our produce. We have a lot of support from the community and from folks that are regulars to our farm stand. What's very, very popular for us is our sun gold tomatoes, the cucumbers, the peppers, our flowers as well, though nothing too ornate. Next slide. This just shows a picture of some of our students that are preparing some of that harvest that goes to the food pantries. And we really want our students to do all aspects of the farm. So some of the more unsavory tasks like weeding has to be done, watering, but then also learning about food safety and food sanitation. They're learning about harvesting and our wash pack, packaging the items, weighing them for sale at the farm stand, but also for sale at local restaurants or for wholesalers. We encourage them to try the produce. So our farmer will put together different tasting programs or learning how to make things like smoothies. They're doing different landscaping chores, but the tasks rotate each time that they're there and in each small group. And one of the parts of the program that makes the program so successful is that the students' teacher and teacher aides join the students in addition to our staff. And because it's, the city of Chicago, and we're in literally the middle of the city, nobody has a lot of urban agriculture experience. So it's an even playing field. All of the students, the teachers, the aides, everybody is getting down and dirty together. Everybody is kind of equal in this space, and it's a game changer for the students. It's just an amazing experience because everybody kind of grows together. The students are always amazed at seeing people buy the produce that they're creating and growing. And it's a really awesome experience. Very similar to Desert Survivors, who you heard from. We believe too, everybody has a purpose and there's something there for everybody to do. Next slide. We talked a little bit about the sensory garden, and you can really see how that's morphed and grown. And we get visitors that come by to want to see it or just have a seat there, have a little picnic there, and enjoy it with their children. Particularly during COVID, we had asked people not to touch anything, and we're very, very careful about making sure everything stayed as sanitary as possible. But this is the one spot where they could actually feel and taste and touch. Next slide. And this just shows a picture of our lead grower and operation manager, Tucker Kelly, who is just jack of all trades, has really helped to develop this program and bring in value added products such as our dried herbs. He's always willing to try different programs and different partnerships with organizations like Easter Seals, when they created through their own partnership a coffee. We did some iced coffee programs, and just a wonderful, amazing addition to our team. Next slide. This shows you just kind of the students getting ready for the day, breaking into groups, shows you kind of the other end of our farm. Next slide. And then the students kind of working with the carrots, talking about the carrots with Tucker. He's very, very involved with the students, can tell you just about anything about them. Next slide. And then the teachers, the staff working side by side with the students. Next slide. And the students, again, kind of down and dirty and doing what they do. And our teams working together. It's often hard to tell who is staff and who is a student, because we've got, again, everybody's side by side working together. Next slide. And these are, again, just some additional photos to show you and kind of give you an idea about the farm. Next slide. And then next slide shows you kind of how it parlays into some of the employment that our young adults are doing at places like grocery stores, which is it's been a great partnership for us with a lot of our young adults. It's a lot of repetitive tasks, which has been very helpful, and they've done a lot of entry level hiring as well, which has been very beneficial. And from there, our young adults are able to continue to build upon their skills. Next slide. And this just gives you our social handles if anybody's interested in taking a look at those. Next slide. And just our website and email address. And that's it. Thank you all. Thank you.
So we have one last presenter today, and that is David Cloninger. And David is from Old School Farms, located in Nashville, Tennessee. Welcome, David.
Hey, everybody. Really happy to be here. I learned a lot. I'm glad I went last. I can try not to repeat some of the things that we have in common with what we've already heard. And a little bit about Old School. It literally is an old school. so the name was easy to come up with. It was a school that had fallen into disrepair, and a company called Miller Rich, who provides support services to adults with disabilities, bought the school and set up shop in there. And there was a 3-acre playground in the back. And so that was turned into a big vegetable garden. So we have a 3-acre vegetable garden where we work. Pretty much, well, the majority of our funding does come from Miller Rich, and that's where we get our farmers as well. We have a staff of 7, 4 of which are adults with disabilities, and they work anywhere from 6 to 9 hours per week. Our shifts are 3-hour shifts per day. So we have shifts Tuesday through Friday, 9 to 12. In the summertime, we start earlier because of the heat. We are in an agricultural area just outside of Nashville. You can get to downtown Nashville in 15 minutes, so it's really accessible for our folks. But we're surrounded by farms and old-time farmers, which is really key for us to be able to do what we do, because as Little Otter Farm was saying, talking about regenerative agriculture and the importance of biodiversity, we also value that quite a bit. And so we rely on the farms around here for our manure, our fertilizer. That's where we use a horse farm down the road, and we get it for free. And that's one of the main activities we do from fall through the winter as well, when we can't be out in the garden as much. But it's a great way for us to work with the community that is around us and let people know that we're here. A lot of the community around us in the city of Nashville, I think, don't know who we are or what we do. And we're trying to get better about that. So this farm's been around since 2014, and we've gone through a lot of different iterations of how to make the farm successful and how to do our work the best way we can. We've tried CSAs, we've tried selling at markets, and we've tried restaurants as well, all of which were semi-successful, but ultimately added a lot of pressure on the farm managers. We've gone through a lot of farm managers over the years, and it's tough to try to, make enough money to support the entire organization when you have a pretty small farm, pretty small staff. And so what we do now, when COVID hit, we start donating almost everything to food pantries, and that's my background is in food banking. I worked up until 2017. I was in food banking, and then I've been full-time farming since then. It's a beautiful connection, farms and food banks and food insecurity and local farms. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit for those kind of relationships to happen. And so we're trying to connect those dots as best we can. So a lot of my points are because of what I do every day as I'm working with the crew and coming up with how we're going to do what we do. And so my main points were more functional in terms of like how, kind of getting into the nitty-gritty of what works and what doesn't. So, and as I was reading through my points earlier today, I realized that these are pretty much similar for anybody, whether you have a disability or not. These are just kind of how to work with people in general. So one of the things that I feel really fortunate about is that since I do get to work with the guys every day, I know them well. And so it helps to know somebody really well so that you can kind of, beforehand, like what types of tasks that they're going to be good at or enjoy, and some that'll be more of a challenge for them. So it's nice to have that knowledge going in so that you can, each day I'm trying to craft, I'm trying to find that balance between what needs to get done, and then, but also like, how can we have a meaningful work experience today, because that's what everybody's looking for. And farming is so ripe for that. You know, it can be very very meaningful work. I think people are finding that out more and more. You know, I always have a ton of tasks in my back pocket to bust out in case the thing that I thought we were going to do that day is not working, which happens quite a bit. We can pivot to something else. That being said, changing tasks very rapidly and like not being very good at communication is really challenging for our folks. So you do need to be prepared, but also be able to pivot if you need to. You know, over communication is really good. A lot of respect. I heard somebody else talk about respect. That's really key for us, and patience on the part of my staff, who's also leading crews. Is I feel like if we can't show up and have respect and patience, then we don't need to be doing this job. This is it's not just any old job. You know, this is a privilege for us, and we need to treat it as such. So after COVID, we kind of stopped doing the CSAs and the farmers markets, and we started donating more to the food pantries, and then we just started asking for money to support that work. So we've got a few just individual donors that we've been able to reach out to. We try to get grants, but that's really, you know, the grant aspect is really something that I hope being a part of the Care Farm Network will help us with, because it's just hard to find the time to sit down and really dig into those grants. So if there would be some shortcuts for that, that would be super helpful for us. In terms of you know, supporting our work, that's always the challenge. And so for, you know, going into next year, we are going to do some more markets. We're starting about an acre flower farm. So I'd love to talk more offline with the little Otter Farm folks about growing flowers. We're really excited about that. We've done a little bit of that, just mixed in with our vegetables, and it's been really successful with our guys in terms of making bouquets and just really getting into that. And then of course everybody loves them, so they're pretty easy to sell, we found. We also we provide employment to our folks year round. So in the wintertime, we make value-added products. So we make tea blends with some of our herbs that we grow. We make salt blends. We make salves with oil and herbs. We do popcorn, and we also do cornmeal, which is pretty fun because you can grow a ton of corn and then, you know, let it dry and turn it into shelf-stable products. So that's something that we do over the winter, as well as just, you know, a bunch of maintenance tasks. There's always something to do. We keep a running list during the year of things we can do off season. Let's see if there's anything else. Yeah, I think the main thing, you know, we have one farmer who he's years, and I think it was maybe the best part about this work is when one of the farmers is teaching somebody else that's newer to farming how to do something, and it just there's so much pride in that, and I think that's something that our folks just don't get enough of in their life. And so we have a farmer named Jamie who you know, he grows at his house. Like, he's always talking about his garden at his house, and it's just, farming is his life. That's just what he loves to do, and it's always been a part of his life. And so and when we have groups of visitors come who are maybe potentially looking into working on a farm, it's so great to just turn the reins over to him and let him talk about his experience. And also learning from him, learning from the rest of the crew. It's so important. That's a piece that we just have to keep at the forefront, because yeah, we all have things to learn and teach. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Thank you,
really happy
David.
to be here with y'all.
I really appreciate it. Love your photos too. So thanks to all the presenters for sharing your stories, the challenges, the successes. I'm sure that is resonating with a lot of people on this call today. Given the time that we have, I think I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of mix and match. We were going to do some Q&A for the presenters, and we're also going to throw in here an open forum. Excuse me. So some of the questions here just as prompts, and again, please feel free to use your chat. This just helps us, hopefully you have a better idea of kind of where CFN has come from and where we're headed. But this is why we're having this launch today, to hear from you all around what types of things would be helpful. Well, how could you be more effective? What are you hearing from the network around benefits that could interest you or resources that could support you? And like our presenters shared, are there challenges that you're having? Are there conferences that you attend that maybe we should be aware of? And what opportunities what might we be missing, and what excites you about being a member of the Care Farming Network? I would love to be able to open it up and have people discuss, but we've got a heck of a lot of people on this call today. So again, if things are coming top of mind, I've got my chat window open and happy to throw questions out to any of the presenters here or anyone from the CFN team. And if you have a response, you can throw it in the chat window too. We have about, I'd say, 15 to 20 minutes for something like this. I know there were some questions that came up before. David, somebody asked whether or not you were on the Joe Gardner podcast. Let's see. I think you can unmute yourself. Maybe not. There you go.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes, can hear you.
I don't know Joe Gardner, no. I'm
No, okay.
interested though. Yeah.
No, there was another question here in chat from Carl. How did you get the very initial start to your farm? Using your own funds? What kind of access to land did you have? This is open to any of the presenters, and sure for anyone else that would like to type in chat if you've got anything to share on that.
I can speak to that from Urban Autism Solutions.
Sure,
We
go ahead.
were very, very fortunate in terms of land. We were able to receive a 4-year lease agreement where there was no charge for that land. In terms of the infrastructure and all of that, we did a ton of grant writing and private donors and fundraising. And every year for maybe the first 5 years of the farm, there was like another piece to the farm that was built and added to it. So it was a bit by bit process for it to grow and become what it was. We also paid consulting fees to organizations like the Chicago Botanic Gardens and so forth. But wherever we could, we tried to get expert voices to help us figure out what we didn't know, which was everything.
Thanks, Heather. Jennifer and Max?
Yeah, we're I guess a different model. We're an LLC. We saved up and used our own family resources, sort of like, instead of sending your kid to college, we started a farm. And
I hope to go back to college too.
Yeah, Max was taking part-time college classes in New Jersey, and as soon as he learns to drive, we'll be able to take classes down here because we don't have any public transportation here in Bedford.
I liked taking the bus back up north.
But we started small, like a lot of family farms, and we reinvest in the farm. Max started getting a paycheck this year in January, but I don't. But this is what parents do for their kids. we get tremendous support from the community. So we have never bought a piece of glassware. The community just, everybody seems to have lots of glassware in their cupboards and in their basements. People have donated flowers to us. They bring us bulbs. They go, hey, you should grow this. People bring us cardboard and people buy our flowers. And so we have had just tremendous support from the local community, but otherwise we're all privately funded. I don't have time, as David said, grant writing is not only time consuming to write the grant, but then time consuming to administer the grant and deal with all of the red tape and somebody looking over your shoulder. It's hard enough to just learn how to farm. So we're small and we just reinvest as we can. We save our seeds. It's one of the reasons why we've gone to regenerative agriculture, because fertilizer has become so expensive. We make our own compost. We try to be very efficient in our use of resources on the farm.
And Karen.
Yes, I should put my video on here. Yes, at Desert Survivors, we were very fortunate too. There was a lot of people in the community looking for programs for their children that were not available. And we just reached out to a lot of people here in our own community and also wrote for grants, etc. And it was also a time where the actual state was starting to get some money to help programs get a start. So we used every resource we could find to get things going. And the city of Tucson have been so supportive of us over the years, and managing to get this piece of 4 acres that we have now. They've even expanded that actually since we first got it. And that has really allowed us to grow so much, because we are actually both a growing and a retail nursery. Our nursery is open to the public 5 days a week. And we have a membership base, which has also been somewhat of a fundraiser. We have customers who are really, really interested in native plants, because as I said earlier, we are the only native plant nursery in Arizona. So people actually pay $50 a year to be members of Desert Survivors. And we have a membership base of over 1,000 people. So right there, we've got money coming in on those memberships. And all that support really helps. We're also eligible for the Arizona State Credit, tax credit. So it's usually about this time of year when we're starting our tax credit fundraiser. And last year we brought in 100,000 through that tax donation situation, which is wonderful. So, yep, funding is always fun, but there are ways.
Thanks, Karen. I'm seeing some really good information being shared here in the chat too. Thanks to those of you who are throwing in there what it looks like could be some benefits that the Care Farming Network could be offering. I see a question here from Emily. What is your tangible advice for someone hoping to start their own care farm? Where to start, how to get funding? Looks like Emily is an aspiring care farmer. I wonder if Andrea or Woody would like to tackle that. We talk a lot to aspiring care farmers here.
Andrea, you want me to take that or you want to take it?
You go, Woody.
All right. I would say just really quickly in this, large group, I'd say visit visit the care farms in your area if you can. Start there. And the Care Farm Network offers free sort of consult for someone like you, and that would be contacting us. Andrea and Kate sort of manage that. I think Kate's the point person, and I'm usually on that call. We love to help people work through the how to start sort of aspiring care farmer thing. but I do think that visiting care farms and even other operations that are, you know, maybe parallel to a care farm is really the first place to start and get a network going of people that can offer advice. Just in short, I think that's probably the answer. And Andrea, you have anything to add?
Thanks, Woody.
No.
Yeah, please do reach out to us with any specific questions or general questions, and we can kind of start being able to share some of those resources, many of which will be landing on our website too, for things to think through around kind of what model are you going to use. There's a question in here from Christine to be thoughtful about when you're thinking of starting a farm. Are you going to be a nonprofit or are you going to be an LLC? Jennifer and Max, would you mind answering that one? Because you're coming at this from the LLC viewpoint.
Well, I mean, I can just answer from a business perspective. Whenever
Absolutely.
you're trying to start a business, no matter what kind of business it is, it's important to know like who you are, what you want to be, and that could change. I mean, when we started the farm, I never imagined that we would sell arrangements because I hate making flower arrangements, and we were just going to sell straight bunches, but somebody donated some beautiful antique mason jars, and lo and behold, Max loves making arrangements. So my point is, you don't have to know every detail, and you need to be open to change. But most small businesses fail because everybody has advice for small business. Oh, you should do this, you should do that, you should do the other thing. So you need to have some boundaries of who you are. So for us, what was most important for us was to be part of our local community. You know, we grow flowers, people, and community. And so we are not intended to be huge. We want to stay small. I remember the first year, people were like, oh, you should make dried flower wreaths. Oh, you should do this. Oh, you should do that. And to sort of have our goals and to keep your eye on your goals so that you don't lose your precious time. And I am really happy to do business consulting with folks. And I was a business professor for 15 years. And before that, I was in operation. I ran the division of cardiology at New York Presbyterian Hospital. So my background's in logistics and operations and management. So if anybody wants to help me with farming, I'm happy to swap finance and management expertise.
Thank you. Jenny here is mentioning that she'd love to see a future webinar or conversation sharing the benefits and drawbacks of some of those different models, for-profit versus nonprofit. I think that is on our radar, right, Andrea? Yep.
If I could just add something on that too. I mean, it also just depends where you're at, right? And what kind of a farm. It fortunately doesn't take a tremendous amount of capital to start a flower farm because you can do it on a very small acreage, and there are a lot of examples and a lot of networks of small flower farmers. But you know, other operations require more capital. So again, it's what you want to spend your time on, and I didn't want to spend my time on the whole grant system, and I didn't want to be part of that world. I wanted to be more independent. So that was something that was important to me. So it sort of goes back to what I said before. You have to figure out how you want to spend your day. You know, what do you want to spend your limited amount of time on, and then build your business from there.
Thank you. Quickly going through the chat here. Maya, best money we ever spent was consulting with Woody. Go Woody. We have some comments here, and this might be related more to as we explore having regional chapters. Looks like here Pennsylvania. Holly is saying Pennsylvania's interpretation of Olmsted law excludes farms. Ooh. So I think as we're growing, you're going to hear us talking about regional chapters, and this could get into some interesting advocacy work where certain regions can work together to do this legislative work, or not care farming network can do that too. Some comments here around board selection being very important. A question from Homefields around how organizations get funds for the therapeutic portion of programming. Anyone want to take that on? Woody, I see you unmute.
Well, I've talked with Homefields for a while, so they've already heard this, but for the larger group, we, and Maya put in the chat also their breakdown at a Farm Less Ordinary, and Red Wiggler's very similar. We're about 50% foundations today. We're about 15% in sales of vegetables. And then the balance of it is individuals and a little bit of corporate. We do get 10% from our county government here in terms of funding. But what I'd also say on funding is if you're starting out, it is probably, I wouldn't say it's a waste of time, but the foundations are going to want to see that you've been in business a couple of years. So I'd focus on individual giving in the very beginning. And I would actually be focused on, if you can, major donors. So, you know, the effort that goes into raising $10,000 from one household or family, or what I call angel donor in the beginning, is how Red Wiggler got started. We had one angel donor, and the land was donated to us with an agreement that over time we'd pay rent, and that we made good on that after about 3 or 4 years. But it does take time, and it's a long game. And I always have hesitated to talk about business planning, but essentially a grant is a business plan. And we've always gone after general operating support. So pitch your organization as a general operating organization that you can't take one piece and separate it from the other. So having sales as a silo and thinking that, you know, they're all, sales are affected by programming affected by sales. But typically in my experience, I've seen most of the care farms that have been successful, fundraising has been the way that they've done it. And with respect, I know there was something earlier in the chat about how you decide between capital, like equipment grants versus operating or program grants. You know, you do the best you can with equipment and capital in the very beginning, but really making sure that you can pay your farm manager, you can, you know, not go into debt, and so really keep it at general operating. And then over time, when you do develop a capital campaign, make sure you're not cannibalizing your, what you would call your annual fund. So you don't want to trade
there's another conference, apparently the American Horticulture Therapy Association.
All right. Well, anyway, I think that it's clear that some maybe a separate sort of event like this on fundraising would be a good thing, and I would love to participate in that. I'll pass it back.
Somebody said that they started their farm at a crowdsourcing fundraiser on the internet, plus 20,000 of their own money. Giving Tuesday is coming up, and is a major opportunity to tell your story in your networks.
So
I'd have to also, hearing that, I would also retract. I think things are very different from the way they were back in '96 and the late, you know, '90s. Yeah, crowdfunding is definitely a way to go. And it doesn't have the same, you know, anyway, I think it's a very efficient way to raise money. So, you know, you got to evolve with the times, and I'm not sure I have completely. Anyway, pass it back.
Thanks, Woody. We're about out of time, and so some of these questions, thank you for answering them. You're going to hear in just a few minutes here where we can get back together and have more time to discuss topics like this, as well as where to find us. But in the interest of time, we're just going to wrap up this open forum. I want to thank all of the presenters again. And I'm now going to pass it over to Gabrielle, who's going to talk to you all about where you can find us.
Hi, so my name is Gabrielle. I am the Care Farming Network social media consultant. And yeah, we are active on Facebook and Instagram. We also have accounts on TikTok and Twitter, though we don't use those as much. But Facebook and Instagram are a great place to follow along with all the updates we're posting, resources, highlighting different care farms. And something I will point out, I'll send an example link in the chat, is our Featured Farm Friday posts. So if you haven't been featured in one of these already, or you don't know what it is, Featured Farm Friday is something we post every Friday where we gather a bunch of information, media, etc., on one of the care farms in our network, which includes most of you. And we make a post about it just to share it with the world. And so for Featured Farm Friday, I don't have the link. If someone has the link, that would be so cool. We have a form you can fill out to request to be featured in a Featured Farm Friday post. So if you fill out the form, you'll be bumped to the top of our list for Featured Farm Friday. And it's really helpful for us because it gives us exactly the information that you want us to feature, or the photos you want us to use, etc., for Featured Farm Friday, instead of us going through your social media and your website and trying to figure out what we think the best stuff to feature is. But yes, no one has sent the link yet. I will find the link. But in addition to our pages where we share those information, we have a Facebook group where you can join and be in communication with other members. And that is called the Care Farming Network's Care Farming Discussion Group on Facebook. And yeah, in addition to all of this, we'll also be hosting monthly online member gatherings, with our first meeting taking place on Thursday, November 3rd at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. We envision these gatherings to be informal networking and connection opportunities for members to share advice, challenges, and provide support to each other. They will be recorded and available to view on our website, and you can find a link to register on our event page, the same page where you registered for this. So in the chat now, Sandy sent the submission form for Featured Farm Friday. So if you haven't been a part of a Featured Farm Friday post before, highly recommend filling out the submission form, and all of the many, many other links that were sent in the chat. Yeah, that's about it for social media. And I guess just my recommendation to y'all who don't have pages on Instagram or Facebook yet, or maybe you have a page on one but not the other. It's just such a great way to connect with potential supporters, to connect with other care farmers. So I really recommend being on social media, and please feel free to reach out to me if you need help with the development of your social media, or just looking for tips and things like that.
Thanks, Gabrielle. All right, last shameless plug here. We really want to ensure that we know what is important to you as an existing care farm, as an aspiring care farm, or an individual just interested in care farming. So in the chat, you're going to see a link to a survey. We're also going to email this out to folks. But essentially, we're just, again, asking some of these questions that have come up in the presentation around how can we be supportive? What do you need? How do you want to be connected with other farms? And what should we be considering as the Care Farming Network as we're growing? And your feedback is really going to help us chart our future path. So thank you ahead for taking that. Again, you can find the link to the survey in the chat. So bonus points if you take it now. With all of that said, thank you. It's, harvest season for many of us right now, and we are delighted that you took the time out of your day to join us. A special thank you again to all of the presenters for sharing your stories, your histories, your challenges, your successes. And we hope that you have been as inspired by the Care Farming Network as we have been inspired by your work and interest in the growing care farming movement. So thank you again. Find us in all of the places we've told you where to find us, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks.